board for the Baltimore City Youth Fund. If we have a job at all to do, is to make sure she stays there. We don't want her there for window dressing. When they instate the full board, we want to make sure Catherine Benton Jones is still on that board and she wasn't placed there to appease some of us for window dressing. We're a little tired of that too. So thank you, Catherine.
Our next awardee is Reverend Annie Chambers. Come on down.
It's a real honor to be here today to be able to introduce to people who don't know Reverend Annie Chambers. Reverend Annie Chambers is a true civil rights hero coming out of our city. The most important thing I think in my life about Annie was to witness the fact that I was trying to get somebody to ask you what the year was, but do you all know that in Baltimore that voters voted for rent control, and it won. The voters came out in numbers, and they voted for rent control in Baltimore City. And if I'm not mistaken, that had to have been the early 70s. We're going to do some research. 72. At that time, Mayor Schaefer decided that he did not like how the election turned out, that citizens of Baltimore voted for rent control. So he took the matter to court and overturned it. And that's amazing when you think that had rent control been in place as the citizens elected it to be in place in the 70s, we wouldn't have the gentrification we have going on right now in Baltimore City. Because they were talking about affordable housing then, and that's why they and to get it on the referendum, you have to get a certain amount of signatures to get a question on the ballot. That work was done by Annie Chambers and Bobby Cheeks. Bobby Cheeks and Annie Chambers did that work to get enough signatures to put it on the ballot. Try to put it on the ballot today. See what kind of work that would do. But that's the kind of energy we put in. And it's interesting that your mayor could then take it to court and get it overturned. So it's very important for you to understand our history. You're talking to someone who's been a part of the March on Washington, someone that actually delivered a baby on her way to the March on Washington. You're talking about a lady that has, I don't want to get this wrong, how many children do you have?
25.
25 children, I can't imagine. But she has 25 children, and she's just stayed committed. The first time I met her with Annie, she was living in the Johnson Square community. What was Johnson Square? Guilford area?
Yeah, Guilford.
It was Guilford. She's right where they took the house. Explain to them how you took the house. That should be interesting.
I'm the mother of 25 children. By the time I found myself homeless, I had 18 minor children. And I'd asked Baltimore City to help me find a place. And I was told there was not even a public housing big enough to house us. But the Mayor Schaefer was rehabbing some houses. And it was giving them out as favors. So I found one, 2206 Guilford Avenue. Broke the lock, moved my children in, enrolled my children in the schools, the elementary school, the high school, everywhere that it was supposed to go. And they came for 1 year to try to put me out, but they couldn't get me out because I told them I wasn't going anywhere. Mr. Branch then was housing commissioner. Mr. Branch told the mayor, he said, you know, you're going to look bad because the mayor had said since he couldn't get me out there, they had brought in some state troopers, and I had some more support. They was talking about bringing in the National Guard. My thing was to them, to these policemen who came to my door, some white policemen, I said, you may be white when you leave here, open white, you'll be Alabama. Because I did have me some line of shotgun. And I wasn't going to go anywhere. So I lived in that house for 47 years. I lived there for 47 years. I was a squatter. Baltimore's biggest squatter is me. And I lived there for 47 years raising children, grandchildren. And when I started getting great-grandchildren, actually my children must have thought we owned the house because what we did, for as I was concerned. But I left the house, and now I live in Douglas Homes because that's where God wanted me to do my work, now in Douglas Home. I will end with this by saying, Kimberly can remember when I wasn't reverend anything, and I was pretty hard then. So they know that I wasn't going to back up from any elected officials or the mayor or anybody else. So, that's how I got to live in my house on Guilford Avenue for 47 years.
Wow.
And I also like to add, for the record, is last spring when our young people took to the street, protesting, marching all over the country, Annie Chambers hit the street in Baltimore. In her wheelchair, I saw her in the news riding down Fayette Street and said, here you go. Here is Annie Chambers. It is an honor, really, for you all to get to know some of these women that are here today. Whatever it is you think you cannot do, have a conversation with some of these ladies. No matter how big you think your obstacle is in your particular neighborhood, there's some creativity in this room that can tell you it can be done. And Anne's been a true fellow. Thank you, Anne, for coming.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Annie turns 80 in August.
Woo! You look fabulous.
I done had over 6 husbands. I don't outlive all of them.
Wait, I'll take it.
You sure?
Yeah, because you got the next one. Okay. Yeah. No, you got a few more. I'm like, who's the next one?
Our next honoree is Kimberly Armstrong.
Great. This is great. Okay, Kimberly Armstrong. Thank you very much. On this afternoon, greeting Kimberly Armstrong, young lady also the one met by telephone. I think I met Kimberly when a dear friend, Lynn Pender, was introduced to me, telling me that she was running for election, and I didn't know Kimberly, so I said, where's she coming from? She said, 4x4. I didn't even know the neighborhood 4x4, but that was Kimberly. Kimberly Armstrong decided that she was tired of what's happening in her community. She decided she'd run for election herself. And so that's how I initially met Kimberly, and Kimberly was dealing with environmental issues. She was talking about solar paneling, and that was, at that time, how many years ago was that you ran for election?
2011.
Yeah, in 2011, there weren't a lot of people talking about solar panels. And so I really didn't understand too much about what she was speaking about. But as I grew and learned what she was speaking about, and now she has her own business dealing with solar panels. She's also a motivational speaker. Kim just does an awful lot of stuff. The most impressive thing that I've heard that she did was during an interview session with Civic Works, they had some sort of literature they were handing out to people in the community about the work that Civic Work did. And Kimberly was offended that these white people didn't understand that their literature was offensive. So she explained to them how they needed to change the literature because the literature was offensive to black people. And thank goodness that they heard her, so they changed the literature. And so thank you very much, Kimberly. You certainly earned your plaque.
Next person. Betty.
Next honoree is Betty Carlos.
You just were Mary Alexander Wells. You just were Mary Alexander Wells.
Oh no, that was
Her award not up there, but she has her award. Wasn't that Mary Alexander Wells?
it was what the heck was her name? Oh, what do you call it? Yeah, she was.
Or maybe you should run and give her award.
I did.
I'm sorry. Oh, yeah. Here we go.
There we go.
And it's a pleasure now to introduce you to Betty Carlos. Betty Gilliam Carlos. In fact, that's the way we should have always pronounced you, as Betty Gilliam Carlos. And I'm just joking outside, saying to people that if you want to understand how Senator McFadden could stay in office for 30-something years, how EDO could be the political machine it was in East Baltimore for as long as it was, well, that's called the Gilliam family. The Gilliam crew, that's this family. That family took over polling places in the entire 45th district. In fact, I met her older brother one night at Fort Worthington. You know, when they put the polling numbers out at the end of the night, and they put them out. Well, I was out there, and the man was there, but I was taking them out the wall because I never did a good math, because I would take it home and add it out. So I'm taking the things off the wall, and somebody says, "Put that back," and it was her brother. He introduced me to himself as Morris Gilliam, and he took those lists down every year. I didn't realize that you know, he did that. But the thing I've enjoyed about Betty Carlos is that she was dislocated out of the EBHL footprint area. She attended meetings and pushed back about the history of the neighborhood and what they were going to do with the school. She actually advocated and became the first parent rep on the Henderson Hopkins school boards, and that was fun watching that. And now Delegate Smith was sharing with me earlier when she came, Nia, you know my husband is coming on to the Henderson Hopkins school board. I think it's next month. Yeah, her son goes there, yeah. And so he'll come onto that board in July. And I was kind of chuckling to myself, and I was thinking to myself, well, Delegate Smith, I can guarantee you they picked up the phone and told me before they were going to appoint him, because they wanted to run it past me, because I've been really raising hell down here, folks, about the fact that I'm the only community person on that board. I've been the only community person since they opened that door, and we have not had real community people. I considered Delegate Smith's husband to be a community person because of the energy I've seen him move around. But anyway, we're glad to have Betty here, and perhaps Betty can have some conversations with your husband, because if you can understand what Betty was doing in that school, and then your husband may be able to bring those things to bear at the board level, we really appreciate it. Betty was telling us earlier that her brother was actually the first person in Baltimore to be killed in the Vietnam War. Oh, wow. And that was something I was sharing with Delegate Tiger Davis recently, because he does all that work with black veterans. So he was very interested in finding out more about her brother's story. So that's another reason for the East Baltimore Historical Library to be celebrated. No one, folks, when you leave here, I mean like the planet, no one's going to tell your story. Nobody can tell your story better than you can tell it yourself. That's why we're putting in equipment so that you all can sit in some comfortable chairs when that library opens and tell your family story. Okay? Betty Gilliam is one of the few families who left out of the dislocated area, and whose family actually put their book together. And so we're so glad that she's one of the few families that documented their history. So thanks again. And here's your cotton, because you certainly earned that cotton down there. Thank you.
Yes. Our next honoree is Phyllis Morgan.
You want me to hold it for you? I got you.
okay, look at me.
Now, this is really a pleasure. This is Phyllis Morgan. I met Phyllis Morgan as a student at Sojourner Douglas College. That's the first recollection I have of meeting up with Phyllis Morgan. And later on, I met up with Phyllis at exhausting meetings at Johns Hopkins Hospital with the Urban Health Institute, where we were in every sort of cohort, every sort of forum, every sort of research, to make sure that health disparities that many of us suffer from, that they could find some better solutions for those things. And Phyllis stayed in many, for years, we're talking years, we were in those various forums, and her piece was lead. She was an advocate, strong lead prevention advocate. And she was that because her brother, and she's the care provider of her brother, was affected and impacted by lead. And so Phyllis has been a real champion out there, advocating for the lead prevention work. And then her work down in Sojourner Douglas. We know that Sojourner Douglas unfortunately went belly up, and people like Phyllis were out of work and had to figure it out. And I was so glad to see she successfully landed at the Board of Elections. So when you go to the Board of Elections, you're going to see Phyllis Morgan.
Thank you.
She now resides over in the Orchard Ridge area, and she's right now venturing off to look at some real estate, some sort of partnership she's working with. But believe you me, Phyllis has certainly earned her cotton, and she's responsible for all the star balloons you see here today.
Our next honoree is Miss Barbara Hopkins. I think she's coming from over there.
This is our dear Barbara Hopkins. If you notice, her last name is Hopkins. She works for Hopkins. And if we're still venturing out and going down to Northeast Market, Barbara manages the Hopkins stall in that market. It's a key location. She and Pat Tracy advocated for that space to be in the market so that Hopkins could get in on the ground and begin to deal with health awareness and education on the ground. What better place than the market? So she's been doing that for a while now. Barbara got involved with us when she was working for so much history here. Barbara initially, we met her when she was working for Habitat. She was an event planner for Habitat. That's when we first met Barbara. The next place we saw her was over at the EBHL. She then became a family advocate over there, helping, to get people settled and whenever they were being relocated. And then she left EBHL and she landed over Hopkins, dealing with things in the market and research. In fact, what she probably really worked on? Environmental health and engineering. She's the person that goes to meetings that people are trying to get people to volunteer for things, and when you don't see anybody volunteer, Barbara's always the one that's going to say, I volunteer. It's very unfortunate when we don't know how to say no, And so I'm constantly on Barbara of recent to learn how to say no. There's someone else in that room that can volunteer other than yourself. It has to be. Because one thing is for certain, we certainly have watched our loved ones work themselves all the way to heaven. And we're not trying to do that. We're trying to know when we need to back up. You need to understand that God is still in charge, and there is someone to fill that gap, and you always don't have to be that person. So Barbara stuck with us with this library project, actually came onto our board, was our secretary for a couple of years, and that's been very rewarding to our group, and just done so many wonderful things that people just don't do. I know I've been having issues walking lately, and lo and behold, Barbara shows up with these shoes I have on my feet. Funny. She had a couple of pair of shoes. She said, Nia, try some of these shoes on. really funny. But I was sharing with her today. Hey, Barbara, I touched the shoes out the other day. I wore them to the supermarket. I couldn't button them up because I don't have children at home who can lace my shoes. So even here today, I said, okay, Barbara, here's the shoes, but you have to help me lace them up. Yeah. I just want people to understand how precious Barbara is. And that Barbara is one of those people. Barbara is one of those people that when we think about some of the things that we would like said to Hopkins, Barbara would be a good person for us to share some of our suggestions with. Because at least she gets in those rooms and she's there. And she's a community person. She grew up in East Baltimore. She comes off of Bond Street. She comes from Oliver Street. And she's just a giver. She's a do-gooder. And so we need to do the best we can to just try to help people like Barbara to just keep it moving. So here's your cotton, because you burned it, and since you ordered it, before she's in the big house, she gets two.
Yes, right.
Recently, and Barbara, we were in a conversation where they were talking about the situation where Hopkins University, no less, has discovered that Johns Hopkins, the man, had enslaved people. Well, most black people, we know, we said, whoopee, you know. What we do understand, though, in some of the meetings I've been in with, I think Darcy and Terrell has been on those calls. We just cruised from out in Bel Air. Edison has been on those calls. And they put a committee together, and we're supposed to see how we can make things better after we find out that the man had enslaved people. And I'm trying to explain to those people at the meeting that most of the black people my age, and I'm 70, and some of them a little younger than me, they would say that we've always lived on the plantation. It was like it's a joke in our community that we're on Hopkins Plantation. Now, let me ask you this, people who can really think. How is it that colored people then became black people, then became African American people? In our language, in our conversations, we kept the truth going. We kept saying we lived on Hopkins Plantation. But the scholars didn't pick it up. But this is going on generationally. People have said we live on the plantation. So in true oral tradition, we kept the record. We kept the record. Now the data collectors may not want to honor the fact that we kept the record, but it shows you the power of oral tradition. Talking to your grandchildren, talking to your nieces and nephews, talking to the younger ones, telling them the story. We know when we grew up, people 70 and a little younger, you know, when one of your parents told you, do not walk past Hopkins at night. You know they told you. We all grew up that way. And we need to understand that is a part of our story. And it may be part of the story that some people would like to get rid of. That's the importance of things like documenting. That's the importance of libraries. That's the importance of you all participating. That's the importance of you all understanding what they do to one group of people. And be very clear, that little catchment area called Middle East, ironically, those were the janitors, the cooks, that caused that hospital to function for years. And they did it at ridiculous wages. Ridiculous. So when you come down and you say that you're going to redevelop a neighborhood, what are you really doing? You're erasing a lot of some interesting history too. Because when blizzards came, Hopkins had janitors and cooks in place because their four-wheel drives only had to come down the street 3 blocks. That whole catchment area called Middle East, that is where those cooks lived. That's where those janitors lived. I'm explaining to a lady maybe 15 years ago about the library, and this lady's down at Oliver. No, she was actually in this neighborhood, Broadway East. And she says, I was a wet nurse. She was a lady in the audience. And she said, do you know what a wet nurse is? And we said, no. This lady publicly said that she was a wet nurse for white doctors at Hopkins when their wives had babies and they couldn't breastfeed their children. You cannot breastfeed another baby unless you're lactating. So you had to be lactating yourself, women, right? To be able to breastfeed somebody else's baby. We found 2 midwives down there, wet nurses as she called them, wet nurses, down in that Middle East neighborhood. One of them is still alive. And we hope to goodness that we can get to her and get that story. Because that woman was so proud to tell us that she was a wet nurse for doctors' babies up at Hopkins. And one of them actually became their babysitter. They hired her to stay along with the little child that she had actually breastfed. There's some stories down here, folks, and all of them aren't legend. Some of these things are true stories. So thank you very much for hearing that.
Our next honoree is Anita Bryant.
All right, thank you very much. Okay, glad to introduce Anita Bryant and to share where Anita came along. I was watching Next Door. If we have that site, people going next door, like we have Next Door, Bel Air, Addison, Next Door, Frankfurt, Next Door. Any neighborhood is called Next Door. Seems like people are on there and they complain a lot. That's basically what I get on that site. They complain. But one day I looked up and this lady was on there saying, is this us? That was the thing. She was saying, is this us? And there were pictures of trash, just piles of trash throughout the neighborhood. And so she decided to launch a cleanup. I think she said 3 or 4 people showed up the first week. Then she decided, okay, I'll try another one. Then people just started coming to help to clean up in her area of Bel Air, Addison. That is initially how I met Anita Bryant, because I thought it was so interesting. I just like the, what do you call it, like the marketing style of saying, is this us? You know what I mean? And that's what we can ask ourselves every day. Is this us? You know, when we look throughout our neighborhood, is this really us? So I just connected with her. Then in connecting with her, I found out that she had communications background, and she works for the University of Maryland in the communications department. And can you tell them a little bit about what you do and what your background is? A very impressive resume.
I do communication marketing. Been doing it for a long time. Nonprofits, entertainment, and right now I'm at the University of Maryland. I work at the School of Social Work, and I work at the Institute. And it's basically in mental health for children and families. And what they're finding out, a lot of stuff that's coming out is programs and stuff that we've been doing for a long time. It's not working. It has not worked. There's a big push of social work is so white, if you've heard that. You can't have social workers, especially here in Baltimore, work in a community that's over 60% black, and your social workers are 99%. It's not working. So there's a shift. They've been finding out at the University of Baltimore, Maryland, the University of Baltimore, there's a big thing before I started, unfortunately, with the students that were complaining about racism. And when they were going through schools and getting their degrees, and unfortunately they fought, and it's been a shift and change of presidents. So we'll see some more change and stuff coming through, but they are looking for more people to get the support of being social workers in the community. So communications, what I do is transfer that information over into the public. It's redoctoring a lot of the documents and stuff they put out before, and having it come from the voice of lived experiences, as opposed to just coming from those that just gets the degrees and writes the books. You have to talk to people that's out there. You have to talk to the young people that are actually living it. And unfortunately, for a long time in Baltimore and several cities around the country, it hasn't happened. Everybody's talking to them and for them, but they need to talk, and they can talk for themselves. So that's what we're pushing, and that's the question.
Thank you very much. We're going to present Anita with her cotton shoes on. Let me give her 2 because she has truly tolerated me. We have last but not least, who's coming in. We're here to present Tanya Lester with her appreciation award. At least we met up with Tanya as an employee of the Urban Health Institute that was under Bob Blum, Dr. Bob Blum, and she moved on from the Urban Health Institute and went over to work for Morgan State University in the admissions office. And after she was there for one semester, she said, heck, I should go back to school myself. So she went back to school. She majored in marketing and public relations, and she decided that she was going to bring some of that talent towards us. She's also the president of the Rotary Club, the East Baltimore chapter of the Rotary Club, and I think that she stepped down in a couple of days.
Yeah, so it'll be ending, yes.
But she's done some interesting work with the Baltimore Rotary Club. What she's done for us is she's helped us to understand how to live stream our events. She's a techie. We aren't. She's the type of person, while Catherine Vinton-Jones may be working at 12, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock at night, she's partying. She called me last night. She says, I'm going to call you when I get home. I'm coming from a fight party. I said, okay, good. Well, last week when she called me, she says, hey, I'm out in Baltimore County. I'm at the country club bartending. And I said, oh, you bartend too? She says, yeah, bartend too part-time. It's just really just a ball of energy, this lady. And then the whole time we're planning events like this, it's usually 10, 11 o'clock at night, she has a grandson that's screaming in our ears, and he is not going to let her talk on that phone unless he includes him in the conversation. So that's been going on for the last couple of weeks, and it's been really interesting to watch that and how she can actually navigate it all. The conversation on the phone, the conversation her grandson is having with her. It's all been real interesting. But Katanya also has a connection with another dear person that's around us. It's not here today, and that's Marsha Reed's Jews. Marsha Reed's Jews made us some little hand sanitizer gifts. I think she wanted everybody to take hand sanitizer home. Marsha's taking this pandemic thing very seriously. So she wanted everybody to have their own sanitizer, so nobody could pump, nobody could be pushing your pump. She's hilarious, by the way. Marsha used to do a radio talk show on WAA for years called Keep It Moving. Where Keep It Moving is now, Marsha came onto the board of the East Baltimore Historical Library, I think 2 years ago. Marsha was very, very much needed to push us forward with the things we needed to do with Johns Hopkins, which is actually to get a lease in the Henderson Hopkins School to operate. Marsha actually managed us getting that lease signed. We have no rent. We have no utilities for 10 years.
All right.
For 10 years. And, because Delegate Smith is younger than most of us in the room, we hope in 10 years she'll fight to keep us there. And now that her husband is on the board, we'll put him to work too. Because it's very important. It's very important that we have young people like Delegate Stephanie Smith, young people like Councilman Antonia Glover. These young people are coming, folks. Either we can decide that we're going to coach them, give them some advice, or they're going to run over us, okay? And that's where I see these young people. These young people are tired. They want things that we wanted yesterday. They want them now. You cannot blame them. A wise man said a long time ago, the only thing wrong with youth is wasted on youth. By the time they get to know the wisdom that you have, we don't have the energy. So the best thing we can do is to get some of those young people, and we decide that we will coach them, we will give them information to make their lives and their paths go easier. So we thank you, Katanya, for coming, but Katanya and Marsha, before I forget, Marsha Reed's Jews wants to now open up a radio program. It's not a program, I'm sorry, it's a radio station. That radio station will be empowered by women. She calls some of them pot stirrers. Kim Trueheart is with us today to let you know that Kim Trueheart's here, pot stirrer. Okay? Rhonda Wimbush in West Baltimore, pot stirrer. Christina Flowers over here, she has her own radio program. She's over in 1010 every week, stirring the pot. So what Marsha is doing is Marsha is asking the women who we're honoring here today and those who couldn't come. She wants to interview you all and begin doing that in July, to begin to interview you so people can find out more of what you're doing and more of what you're saying. And so hopefully by next year this time, everybody will understand that we have a woman-powered radio program streaming off of the internet called Peak News. Such a smart young girl she is. So, looks like we got everybody?
Yes, we do.
Not quite.
Okay,
No, wait, got one more.
I'd like to go and name all of the women, though, because they should know all of the women. We're talking Eartha Harris. Eartha Harris has a radio talk show on 10 a.m. She also helped put together the Million Man March, does an awful lot of work in community, has a tight-knit group, and in fact, I think that's the name of her broadcast, Tight-Knit. So she's always on the move doing things. East Baltimore young person, lives down on Eaton Street. Christina Flowers, we have her here, Glenda. Rosita Harris is hailing out of the McElderry Park area. Rosita works with young people in the McElderry Park area. You have Audrey Carter, who does work in the Oliver community. She is the youth coordinator for Zion Baptist Church. Also works at the Head Start program at St. Francis down on Carolina Street. Cynthia Gross is the president of the CARES community in East Baltimore. Does an awful lot of work over in that care community. And we're sorry she's not with us today. Cynthia Gaddy Brooks, who is Dee Gaddy's daughter. I spoke to Cynthia the other day. She's out of town this weekend. I'm sure she needed to get away. But she's still down there servicing the needs of women and children. She's in need of any type of resources that you have. They do take clothes, they do take shoes. Just call her to let her know that you can drop off. Rita Cruz is with us today. Rita Cruz and Barbara Jackson. The two of them aren't with us. Rita Cruz is the president of Bel Air Addison Community Association, and Barbara Jackson is the president of Frankfurt Improvement Association, Community Association. Both these ladies are hanging out together today. Rita Cruz's brother is having a retirement party today, and so Barbara Jackson and Miss Rita Cruz are at that retirement party, and that's why they aren't here today. But we will certainly send them their cotton by way of some of their friends that are in the room, because these ladies have been picking cotton a long time too. Both of those ladies, Rita Cruz and Barbara Jackson, are both retired school teachers in Baltimore City. Barbara Jackson retired after 30 years. I'm not sure how many years Miss Cruz did, but these ladies are retired school teachers. Other ladies are Dolores Sparks, and this is an interesting story. She couldn't come out. Dolores Sparks recently suffered a heart attack. She opened something years ago called Dee's Place. Dee's Place is a substance abuse prevention center. I was asking Dee how she started that. Dee said that it was about 12 o'clock at night. A young lady, she's walking home, and the young lady asked her if she knew any place where she could go to an NA meeting because she really wanted to come off drugs. This young person, 12 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night, she was trying to find some place safe that she could go. Well, Dee told her she didn't know any place. She didn't know any place that had NA meetings, 11, 12 o'clock at night. But she said, but if you really want to have a session, we can go to my home and we have a session. So Dee took that young person home with her, and that was the beginning of Dee's Place. She stayed up all night praying and talking to that young person about how she could escape the drug world. And from that experience, Dee saw the need for an NA program or an all-night program where people would come in at 8 o'clock at night, and once you come in, you're locked in. And you have to be in until sunup the next morning. And so they started that program in the Oliver community, and Lexa transitioned over to the Men's Center, and then HEPCAP came along because it was a very successful program, and convinced Ms. D to move it over to HEPCAP. And after she got it over HEPCAP, and federal funds started coming in, then they asked Ms. D to retire. That's what the machine, that's what the machines do. They come in, they identify who is making impact in your community, and then they co-opt you. I'm standing here today at 70 to tell you that so many people have tried to co-opt this project. We've been all night explaining the name and names. It is important for us to learn how to protect our ideas, how to come up with things we think will work in our community, and get with people who will tell us and teach us how to protect what it is that we bring to the table. Because we have to do that. You have Miss Lucille Gorham, who started the whole hydroponics thinking over at Johns Hopkins about hydroponics, and it's still happening today. And this field is gone, but those sort of things happen. Next people we wanted to recognize was Sharon McCullough. Sharon McCullough. Wow. Sharon McCullough, please come up and speak for yourself. We have her award. Excellent. I'm so glad you made it, Sharon. Good for you. Great. I'm glad to see you, Sharon McCullough. All right, there you go. Sharon McCullough is a media technician and librarian with the public school system. I initially met Sharon McCullough years ago in the school system being a librarian. I later met her dealing with political things when she decided to run for election. That was a big thing for me. She decided to run for election, and I didn't experience Sharon as being a political person. I just never saw her being, a political person. But she ran for election. I remember during that time, she called me one night and she said, "Hey, Miss Mary, I don't have any money to buy the signs and stuff." She says, "I'm finally getting my signs out." She got her signs out 2 weeks before the election, which I thought was incredible, that you get your signs out 2 weeks before the election. You only have a couple of girlfriends, and I know about those things where you only have a couple of girlfriends that are going to run around helping you put out signs somewhere. Lucky for her that she had those few friends that would help her with something like that. Also, thank goodness she is a Dunbar alumni. When you consider the fact that she did not have the benefit of finance, nor physical help, then an election night, and you see, because a lot of people were running that year. In fact, it was the year that you won. Yeah. A lot of folks, what year was that? 2018? A lot of people running, a lot of money spent. This is a young lady who did not have money, but she came in fifth. So we looked at the numbers and we said, if this lady can put up signs 2 weeks before the election, she didn't have the benefit of money, and she come in fifth, and we knew people on that, on that line who had also run and had spent thousands of dollars. So it goes to show you that you do not need money and position to run for some of these positions. What you have to have is heart, and also understand that friends will help, So we want to congratulate Sharon, and maybe Sharon would like to speak to you about how things were under COVID for a librarian working through distance learning, dealing with public school children. Give us some of that.
Sure. First, I got to give praise and honor to God to him for what he has done, is doing, and going to do in each and every one of our lives. And before I say anything about the pandemic, I want to first express to those who may have lost loved ones in the pandemic my sincerest condolences, because for me, I have mixed emotions about the pandemic, especially when it came to my children. The pandemic was also a blessing for our children in Baltimore City Public Schools, because our children would never have seen the amount of technology that they had got their hands on during this pandemic. That means that they found a laptop for every last child. No matter if they had 7 kids in their household, 7 children had a laptop. Unfortunately, though, a lot of the parents did not cooperate with us and make their children log on. But my job as a librarian is to make sure that my children are 21st century ready and global citizens. And what that means is they need to know how to use technology effectively and efficiently. They're tech savvy. They know how to play Madden, and they know how to go in and do all these other games. But for our children to be cutting edge with the rest of the world for 21st century readiness, our children needed to know how to be able to log on by themselves. They needed to know how to send emails. They needed to know how to talk over the global networks that we had to actually do with our kids. And what was so impressive to me was, this was my great-nephew's first year entering into school. He was a pre-K going to, he goes to Brim Lane. And when I wrote all his information down for him, which I had asked all of our parents to do for their children, is that you write all of their login information down, and they could actually log on by themselves. And after a while, he was like, oh, I got this all, Sharon. I got this all, Sharon. And so it was really wonderful to watch he and my mother together. My mother is almost 80 years old, never touched a computer in her life, and she's actually sitting there with a 4-year-old, making sure he's logged on every day. And he'll say stuff like, oh, no, Danny, you messed it up. Let's go get Aunt Regina. But for me, as I said, the way my passion is for my young people is I have to have my children ready. And what I do is I do a lot of begging for my children in the library, because libraries are not like when we went to school. You don't just come to the library and read. My job is to teach you how to do research, make sure you're ready for college, because one thing people don't understand, that every college in the world has in common is they all have a library smack dab in the middle of it. And if our children don't know how to use the library, that's what discourages them a lot of times when they go to college. Because all the other people are trained on how to go in and get resources, use the computers, and when our kids get there, they don't know how to do these things. Unfortunately, it's a fight. It's a fight often for us, but I thank you for the stamina of the other teachers and my educated friends and colleagues that we fought a good fight through this pandemic with our children. And I'm a big person on STEM because thank God my background, I've been blessed. My degree is in computer information systems, actually. That's my undergrad degree. And my master's is in library, in leadership and teaching with an emphasis in library media. So I do promote a lot of STEM in my library. I've had about 17 robots donated to my students so that I can actually teach them how to program, because that's what my background is as a programmer, so they all know how to code at all different grade levels. And so I thank God for the opportunity to be able to have served young people in every grade level. So I just thank Him for the gift of teaching, and I just hope I can continue on to provide for my kids. And all of you guys, please fight for my children's education. Please fight and continue to fight for them to have this technology that they not only need, that they deserve to have. Okay? So, thank you all. Thank you.
Now it's in the beautiful.
Nia Redmond, we'd like you to come to the front.
Oh no, I'm just saying beautiful what you do. I love it.
Yes, that's God. Good for you. Come on.
Yep, front and center.
And Miss Catherine, come on up too. All right, I think it was a lady.
Yeah, it's good enough.
Okay. Want to get something done, call with us. We just want to gather around here. Nia has done so much. Like Nia said, I met her. We've all met her at some point in our life doing something else. But when I met her, I was working for the Urban Health Institute, and I fell in love immediately with her pizzazz and jazziness, how she checks people and won't let it. And I just adopted her as my auntie. I've been in and out, with different things in my life, but I'm back, and I'm so glad. It was just really wonderful helping her and working with this whole group of women right here to put this event together. But we want to acknowledge you. You've taken your time. You wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you. You with some flowers. We have
You're gonna take a group shot.
Anybody need a witness? Just give me a number. Everybody down there.
She got room.
Reverend James, sit back up.
Yeah, you need to come on, so you won't get ran over. Cause she's going back in that hole. Right there. Somebody can fill in that hole right there. Here we get a couple of people on this side, so it won't be over.
Miss Betty right here.
Y'all can come on this side.
If COVID taught me nothing else, we gotta celebrate every day. Every day. COVID's hard on this ball. And you need to get a shot. You know,
I will not take it with this picture no more.
I hear you there. I hear. We're gonna put it way over here.
thank you very much. It is Stephanie Award.
And these are the ones in the front. Y'all got your own
Well, let me introduce these ladies to you. The ladies who received these awards, those who are with us and those who aren't here today but are coming. These ladies will become the East Baltimore President's Roundtable. The East Baltimore President's Roundtable will actually become ambassadors for the History Project to move this project into every neighborhood. We are losing the stories of every senior that leaves without putting a tape recorder in front of them. Our mission will be to rev up our churches, to use their facilities, begin to connect oral history, because we must keep archiving the stories. It is very, very important. So the East Baltimore Historical Library right now is being built out at 2100 Ashland Avenue. Anyone can go down there between 9 and 3 and ask to see the library space, and they'll let you see that. I think the space should be complete in 3 more weeks. And the young people, Keisha Webster isn't here with us today, but Keisha Webster is heading that up to figure out what sort of programming they will have in there. We do know that we will have genealogy workshops in there. We have partnered with the Ena Pratt Library, and they will bring facilitators to teach workshops on genealogy in that facility. And there's just a number of people. The lady Selena Owens, who was here earlier, she will be bringing in, I don't know how I'm going to call it. Ukulele. You have the quilting ladies. The quilting ladies will come and they will make a community quilt. Our ambition is that the ladies who are honored with these awards, that you will become a quilt like this quilt. All of these ladies have passed on. You all are living like them. And so, can we get you all together in your busy schedules to say, okay, put your quilt together. Okay. One of the things that I witnessed while we were looking at COVID was the fact that I can no longer see what I look like. And it was so we did get introduced to Zoom, and you know how people were in Zoom and you could see people. Well, I did go on the Zoom, but I never showed who I was, because first I didn't look like I needed to be on Zoom, so I just would have my microphone up there. But the more I thought about it, is that it's getting really hard for anybody's conscious to understand who is East Baltimore. What is East Baltimore? When you're so fractured, and you have so many vacancies, and you have the conditions that we're living in some of these neighborhoods, the only way I could really see myself was when I started looking at these women. When I looked down at Douglas Holmes and I saw Amy, I saw Catherine, I looked up in Bella Edison and I saw who was up there. I said, if I can bring all of these women together, we can actually see East Baltimore. We are the true reflection of East Baltimore. Now, this may not be it wasn't the best day to bring all these ladies together, but there are some things, and I'm really delegates, some things I think that God created and some things man created. But evidently, you were the person who sees this today. We would like for you to get involved to help these women to create this President's Roundtable. It would be comprised of women from all these various neighborhoods in East Baltimore. We have to get the message out that we need to collect the history conversation from our elders. This young man, Ross Joe, is here in the ground. This man made contact recently. He wants to interview seniors to find out how they fared during COVID. Those stories are important, okay? And like this lady behind me said, she has a story to tell. There are a lot of great stories. Go down and speak to Amy Chambers. You got Kim Trulight trickling into the door. Kim, you can get into this picture. Now, Kim is here, and so we can bring her into our picture because we want to talk about the things that she's doing. Hopefully, you can find her too.
Oh, wait, a chair?
The reality of it is most of us in Baltimore learned about what BBOE was because of the Board of Estimates. Kim is there every Wednesday. She was there every Wednesday fighting the good fight. Educating people about this is where they decide how to spend your money.
Yeah.
And if that's not the most important show to go to. Someone put on Facebook recently that Kim Trueheart needs to come back to BOE. That's not really what I think. This lady has suffered a stroke. This lady has suffered coming out her first day with her scooter turning over on top of her on a bus because the bus driver was a little careless. She breaks her shoulder bone. And so you have that after you have a stroke, and I'm really, really pleased that she showed up today. I actually believe that we need to help him become a coach. I spoke to you about that recently, that people need to learn how to advocate for themselves. And if you think that everybody knows that, that's not true. I spoke to, we dropped some names, I spoke to Diane Bell McCoy, spoke to the Black Charities recently about asking him to start training other activists. Okay? Thank goodness for Laurie Sugarham. She does a lot over at Liberty Rec Center. Kim does very much interested in food distribution, thousands of pounds of food being distributed. If you go up to Facebook pages, please like East Baltimore Historical Library's Facebook page. Also, they created a new Facebook, what do they call it, group? I think it's what it's called, a group. It's called Not for Lazy Parents. Not for Lazy Parents is a new Facebook group that was created by Larry Shunan the other day. This COVID thing is no joke, okay? For our children to succeed, it's going to take parents who are not lazy. So the parents who are lazy, those are the parents that we don't need. We're going to focus on getting this information out to the community through these parents who are not lazy parents. Thank God we have our young women out here that we have these young women out here that are homeschooling. Before they were sending their children back into the school system, I'm watching these young women. These young mothers are pulling their children out and they're learning how to go to school, homeschool my child. This is important stuff we're doing right now. It's a dangerous time to be alive, okay? We need to be as wise as serpents and understand that we have to embrace one another more